So, like, Stephen, I don't really know you yet. What's your story at UF? What are you studying? What's your background?
I'm studying chemical engineering. I'm from Fort Myers, Florida.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Chemical engineering. And then are you, like, freshman?
I'm a freshman.
Oh, you're a freshman. Cool.
Yeah.
And then overall, how you liking UF? And, like,
I really like UF. It's blue, but better than most universities. 'cause
Right.
It's in Florida.
and then, like, from a chemical engineering background, where does, like, your interest in, like, politics come in?
I'm just interested in politics, but I probably will have a career that's completely outside of it.
Yeah. So apparently what we want to talk about today here at Youth Bombs is we want to talk about the subject of tariffs. We've brought it up, a couple of times, maybe more than a couple of times. Maybe you're tired of it. But we have a new perspective here today. Lovely Stephen here. And I think it would be cool if we bring his his perspective to the picture in the conversation. So Stephen, since you're new here, I'll let you make a little bit of an opening pitch here.
So I believe tariffs will really be a positive result for the country, and there's many reasons I think this. First, it'll help bring manufacturing back to the United States because other countries have comparative advantages that we physically cannot do outside the United States because we have amendments prohibiting slave labor, where other countries can use literal slave labor or next to it to produce goods cheaper than us. And it'll also have non-economic benefits because having domestic manufacturing, so say we go to war with China, we go to war with any other hostile foreign power. With our domestic manufacturing, we'll be able to do what we did in World War II, produce goods faster and domestically so we can win this war.
Wait, what war are we in?
Well,
A trade war? Are we in a trade war? What kind of war are we in?
well, we need to be prepared for an actual conflict. And
I see.
being prepared for a conflict, sometimes discourages conflict because if you're prepared, then people won't want to fight you if they know they're going to lose.
I see.
But if one does break out, we need to be ready.
Okay, and here we have the infamous Holden Mitrione. So, Holden, what's your position on this?
Tariffs it's literally mind-bogglingly stupid. It's profoundly ignorant. It's just not. It's been proven over and over again that it doesn't work. Tariffs don't work. They actually make manufacturing worse. Okay, and believe it or not, in the United States today, you said you want to bring back manufacturing. Believe it or not, in the United States today, we manufacture more economic goods than ever. All right. We actually manufacture more goods than South Korea, Japan, and India, and I believe those are the 3, 4, and 5th most highest output manufacturing countries in the world. So, I mean, tariffs, they decrease economic output because ultimately labor is not going to be allocated to where it's most productive. It's going to be discriminated based on where it's produced, the borders that it's produced by, or produced in. So, I mean, countries using slave labor, I mean, ultimately that's horrible if a country, or if it happens to be that someone is doing slave labor in some country. Ultimately, one, it should be an individual's decision to see if they're going to buy from that company or not based on that decision, not the government's decision. It's my decision. And two, if you have free trade and you become industrialized, slavery will almost always be abolished. This has always been the case. Everywhere the steam engine goes, slavery effectively gets abolished. The richer a country gets, the more energy they use, the slavery ends up going bye-bye. So countries getting richer, the United States getting richer, that makes it so that they're less likely to engage in slave labor practices. And so whenever you talk about domestic manufacturing for a war, I think you say it's good, like if we're prepared if for a war, because we have to have a lot of domestic manufacturing. So, a good quote on this is from Bastiat. He's like, Frederick Bastiat is like, if economic goods don't cross borders, then soldiers will. And ultimately, that's what happens because the more dependent countries are on one another, the less in their interest it is for them to go to war with one another because both of them will be poor and worse off. So you create an incentive for both countries whenever you trade for them to go to war. So not only do you both get richer, but the odds of going to war are less when you trade with one another. So it's actually the opposite of what you said. I mean, and of course you're going to be richer. And in World War II, the United States was the richest country, and we were able to do that. So anyway, yeah, let's stop at that.
Okay. Response.
So first, I believe you said that that U.S. has produced more than ever. Well,
yes.
Are we producing more than ever per capita? I believe China is growing more in per capita what they are producing than the U.S. So yes, we are increasing in technology. Yes, we are increasing in population. Both of those things are going to cause us to produce more our goods.
So per capita, does that mean like what does that mean?
So are we producing more goods versus our population versus everyone else in the world per population? So China, how much is China making? Us, how much are we making?
Yeah, so you're factoring the population here.
I think per capita, if I'm not mistaken, I think the per capita, the United States manufactures more output, has more manufacturing output
China
per employee.
Is definitely gaining on us over the past years. They've tremendous economic growth. I mean, as of recently, economic outlook in China is much more grim, but ever since like the 70s, they've been getting much more industrial, much more goods produced there.
So I think something also we should establish here is this is a question that Dave Bratt brought up like in his presentation to our campus was, is free trade with China possible? His point was no, because China doesn't have, I don't think they even, do they even use prices? He said no, but I think it's a matter of like reciprocity in the sense of his point was if we bring up tariffs, we get closer to what free market outcomes would be in the net. Like, because I don't know. Do you agree with that? Do you get?
You said with tariffs or without tariffs you get closer.
I think he's saying that when after China imposes a tariff, if we choose a reciprocal tariff in turn, the net outcome would mimic a free market outcome. Well, that's incorrect.
There's no. That's not a free market outcome because you're causing deadweight loss in the market.
Yeah,
so, it would not. I agree that it would not be a free market outcome.
Okay, so we both agree.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
and just because I heard someone say this on the other podcast, I forgot who it was, but just because some country is taxing their own citizens with tariffs and making it so that land, labor, and capital is used in less productive areas does not mean we should do the same thing. Okay, Canada's making their citizens poor. Okay, should we make our citizens poor too with tariffs? Like, no, of course not. We should never make our citizens poor. So, yeah, I think that needed to be said, but it wasn't.
So I think another point that you haven't addressed yet, Holden, that our friend Stephen did was the topic of comparative advantage. To phrase, I think your argument is with tariffs, you actually have the chance to bring over comparative advantage to your own nation. Is that right?
Yes, we're offsetting their benefits that they have for cheaper labor or maybe they have more resources than us and can thus produce that resource better than us. We are bringing back that advantage here by adding that gratuity. Well, gratuity is not the right word. Excess tariff, or I'm forgetting the economic term, but that extra amount of money that they're going to have to pay, the consumer is going to have to pay. It's going to make the good made in America cheaper. So
I guess to summarize this idea to the audience, again, to reiterate, a tariff basically is a tax on imported goods in the sense that a foreign nation has to pay more to bring their good to a domestic nation. That's a tariff. So now, how would this work with like industries? The idea is, at least Trump's idea is we want to bring industry to the United States. We do that by saying, hey, if it's costs more for foreign industries to bring goods to the United States, we should just impose a tariff on a foreign nation. So therefore, we bring the industry and the capital thereafter to the domestic United States. And by bringing more capital to the United States and technology, what have you, you gain the ability to acquire what's called a comparative advantage. Holden, what is your response to this idea?
I mean, it's very simple. We could produce basically almost everything cheaper and more efficiently in the United States. That's an absolute advantage. But the thing is, it has an opportunity cost. That's where comparative advantage comes in. So even though we may be able to produce T-shirts more efficiently and cheaper in the United States because we have more capital, it's better for someone in China to do it because ultimately there's an opportunity cost to that labor, and they could be producing GPUs or something more efficient with the land, labor, and capital. So the whole point of comparative advantage is for someone overseas to be able to do that, even though we could do it much better. So the comparative advantage, the whole point is specializing in producing something with the lowest opportunity cost. So in China, you likely have a lower opportunity cost producing T-shirts than you do in America. So that's why it tends to be that in China they produce a lot of clothes compared to America.
The tariffs to me seem like in economics there's something called game theory. And Each person has a choice to do or not do something, and in this case, it's tariff. And my argument is the Nash equilibrium is to not tariff. And Nash equilibrium is just the person will do what is best for them, but not always what will be best for the entire situation.
So wait, pause. So you're actually saying that the Nash equilibrium would be free market outcomes. So in other words, the best strategy of each party here is free trade, no tariffs. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's the best strategy, but that's not the best outcome.
Interesting. Okay, continue.
Tariffing will necessarily cause short-term pain, short-term economic downturn. But in the long term, it will bring manufacturing back here. And bringing manufacturing back here will eventually be the best long-term outcome because we will be able to produce more goods. We are more technologically advanced. We have a more educated population. So we will be able to produce more goods better. But that risk most likely would not be taken by companies because it is a very extreme risk unless we kind of force them to with the tariffs and making that balance. And that balance is one that the government should be doing because the government has to do that to ensure the defense of the homeland and what is best for the populace in that regard in foreign relations.
So unfortunately, no. The thing that's not true because tariffs will make economic output less than it otherwise would have been because land, labor, and capital is going to be used where it's less effective. So if we bring land, labor, and capital, or if we use land, labor, and capital, scarce land, labor, and capital to produce something like shirts in the United States, that's going to come at the expense of something else. So the United States is going to produce less economic output totally because even though we're more productive once again at producing shirts, the economic output of producing shirts may be less than the alternative, like producing GPUs. So yes, we can make more stuff here. We can make everything here in theory, but also we're going to be poor. Okay, because ultimately we don't get the benefits of comparative advantage and a more sophisticated division of labor. So, ultimately, what you're not seeing here is the opportunity cost, right? Like, yes, we could build everything in the United States, and yes, we could do it more efficiently in many circumstances. We could have an absolute advantage in it, but there's an opportunity cost to all of that land, labor, and capital. So. It could be used. Our educated citizens instead of doing low skill tasks. Like back-breaking labor work, they could be writing code.
Yeah, and I guess to bring it up on the topic of slavery, would you guys both agree that technology would be like more efficient than slave labor? Because I think that's the reason why countries industrialize and like say abolish slavery. I mean, maybe in part due to Enlightenment ideas, but two because technology can be effectively way more efficient, right?
Yeah.
I'll agree on that. Okay. Cool.
Slaves always are very less productive laborers because they're not really motivated and they not really have any stake in what they're doing.
Okay.
So,
I wouldn't say that it's not that they're motivated because if you don't do the work, then they're going to beat you to death or something really horrible will happen to you. Generally, it's just that they in today's society, the energy use, the marginal benefit of the energy of an extra slave is very low, and we have sophisticated capital goods and big machines that do the back-breaking work that slaves used to do, and it's not really as necessary anymore. The marginal benefit of adding a human as a slave is not as high as it used to be, thanks to our increased energy consumption and industrialization. And I mean, it's kind of a long topic that I don't know how much time we have for, but ultimately.
Another segment, perhaps. Yes.
Ultimately, it's not a good idea to enslave someone when you have a really expensive piece of capital equipment where they could break it and it's cost more than their life. But yeah.
I see. Now, I guess I'll let both of you have closing thoughts on the subject of tariff. Holden, I'll give you like 30 seconds, and then I'll give you 30 seconds, then we'll wrap it up here.
The overwhelming economic consensus among real economists, serious economists, is that tariffs are stupid. They make us less productive. They make people poorer than they otherwise would have been. They make it so land, labor, and capital is allocated in areas that are not as productive and is not, and so our overall economic welfare is not as good. And so hopefully you guys understood what I said in this video and do some research yourself. There's been lots of good stuff written about the economics of trade and comparative advantage. And so I will just leave it at that.
And then, Stephen, your closing thoughts.
I still do believe that tariffs are important and for the United States to impose. they will bring back domestic manufacturing, and I think that's overall is a positive. Despite, hey, it might bring economic downturns, there's still non-economic benefits to it. There's a benefit that cannot be quantified economically to having things produced here. And yes, in the economy of now, that may be good, but we don't know what's going to happen in the future, what political turmoil. And we're living in a very politically tumultuous time. Some things we're stepping on eggshells. So I still think that having things produced here is a very important thing, and that's maybe worth a little higher prices.
Cool. And with that said, thank you all so much for watching. Did Holden win? Did Steven win? You decide in the comments below. And be sure to like, comment, and share this video with your friends. And if you have any inquiries, it is youthbombs@alatrorepublicans.com. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.